This is it. We're on our way to French Polynesia and whatever we happen to find along the way. This is it. It's kind of exciting. What we found is Las Islas Revillagigedos, or the Socorro Islands, known as the Mexican Galapagos, about 400 and some miles from Puerto Vallarta. We would visit San Benedicto, the third largest of the 4 islands in the archipelago and a former volcano. Yay! We left Banderas Bay. I'm going to miss Mexico. I'm going to miss the food a lot. And, well, actually, we didn't miss it too much the first day because we had a false start. And we had everything all set up to leave Monday morning, 9:30. Immigration was going to be on our boat, ready to roll. 10 o'clock, they still weren't there. At 10:30, he was up in the office at the marina and found out that they didn't get the message and they weren't going to be on our boat. So instead of leaving Monday, that's day 0, our false start. He got that all squared away and we left on Tuesday, so day 1. Day 1 we left. Pretty cool. It was a little rolly heading out. We had 2. It wasn't bad. We had a little bit of dead calm, but we had to do a little bit of motoring. That makes us a little bit nervous because we don't want to use any more fuel than we have to, and we heard about all this great sailing. But what was really interesting was John was taking a nap. I was up on deck, and I noticed that this airplane goes by, flying really slowly, and I'm like, pretty soon they come around again. Crazy, and they're making a big curve, and I thought about going out there and flashing them, and waving and stuff like that. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because next thing I know, I hear in Spanish something Bella Nave. I'm like, uh-oh. And I hear it again. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And the third time it came across and in English. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I ran down there, and John was already on the radio with them. And they knew our name, but they wanted to know who the captain was. And they wanted to know the port that we left.
Registration number of the boat.
Registration of the boat.
So I have a feeling they knew that we had left, and they were double checking to make sure that we were leaving the country. It is pretty interesting too, because it felt like we were getting kicked out of Mexico, but the entire time that we were in Mexico, we never got that sense of urgency, and they were more than accommodating everywhere that we went. And like Deb said, I'm gonna miss it a lot.
So we're off. We haven't had any wildlife to watch except for some seagulls that like stalk us, and they come in groups of anywhere of 3 to 12, and they fly by and they look inside the cockpit enclosure, kind of like they want to come in, they want to see what they have, but they never get really close. We did have some dolphins that came out late at night. They followed us. That was on day 3. We are now on day 4. We've had some bouts with the wind. It's not exactly going the direction that we'd like, but that's okay. We're dealing with it. For the most part, we've only motored a couple of times. This has been the best sailing I've ever had in my life. We did notice that the wheel on the boat is doing some funny little back forth, and John's diagnosed that as being part of the autopilot. So we might have a little bit of an autopilot issue. It's a boat. We get that, but it's amazing how much you have to know when you're on a boat. So I totally trust him that he's going to be able to fix this, and I'm not too worried. And my job is to always look for dolphin and count the dolphin.
So you want to tell them about your catch of the day?
Not really.
I think you should tell them.
Well, no, it's kind of embarrassing. So I have been putting out the lure every day, trying to catch a fish, and I've not had any luck. There's got to be a fish out there. There's one fish out there, and I know I will catch him, but today was not that day. And today I had to call John out to help me because I had caught a seagull. I heard they taste like chicken, and I had a good chicken recipe.
So before anybody freaks out, just note that it didn't actually eat the lure. somehow it got the fishing line and the lure wrapped around a wing. It obviously couldn't fly away, so when I came out and I see this bird being dragged on the back of the boat, I'm like, okay, go grab me a towel. And I reeled him in, and he was alive, and once I got him closer, I could see that there wasn't a lure in his mouth or beak. And I thought, well, okay, let's see what happens here. So I pulled him up onto the boat, and he looked at me just totally complacent, like he knew I was his only hope of getting out of that situation. What was funny is the bird actually took his beak and grabbed the cable that I have around the kayak so that he could kind of balance himself, since he couldn't really stand and he couldn't use his wings. He used his beak and then just looked at me like, help. So one of the things that we learned from some other friends that have accidentally caught birds is get a towel, get it over their face, kind of subdues them, and then you can do what you need to do. Kind of got him pinned to the deck a little bit, got the lure unwrapped, pulled apart, everything was fine. Put him back in the water, he stretched out, kind of flapped a few times, and then just sat there and kind of recovered, because like Deb mentioned, he was probably full of water from being reeled in, but we did our best. And then pretty soon you could see out the back, he took off and flew, and then he kind of did a flyby around us to say thanks. So this is day 4 of the evening of, the sun's going down, and right about directly under the sun is our target, but I can't pinch the boat tight enough to get into the wind. So I'm going to continue to sail on this course, and it's pretty much what we've been doing for 4 days. And then hopefully tonight the wind will shift around, and then I can slowly turn off to the right and we can run into the island in the morning. So it's been going pretty slow, but kind of what we needed to do is make sure that we hit the islands and any anchorages during daylight, so this is actually going to work out pretty well.
It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
So hopefully this is the last bash and crash we do, and if nobody understands what that is, it's when you sail as close into the wind as you possibly can. The reason that we needed to do that is because as we were sailing down from Puerto Vallarta, we tried to stay as close to the wind as we could, and it kept pushing us further and further south. So last night at about 11 o'clock, it was time to make the tack and turn back to the north because we were going to the wrong island. So anyway, we tacked the boat, we put 2 reefs in the main, we rolled in, just had a small amount of jib out, so it was reefed down pretty good. 20 to 22 knots apparent. You can't see it, but they're easily 1.5 to 2 meter seas. And maybe you can in the background as we go up and down and get an idea of what it's like. Right here, it's not so bad. It's not like you want to puke your brains out or anything. And now I'm trying to get back to the island. However, the wind isn't being very helpful again, and it's sliding us south, but not near as far as we were. So we may have to recover a mile or 2 at the end, but we're probably 6 hours out, about 30 miles. Again, still 30 miles.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah, we're working on it. I'm ready to throw an anchor down in the ground, and hopefully it's not too rolly. Catch up on some sleep. Need to take a look at the autopilot. We'll do a video on that once I get it apart and I have my Tourette's moment, if it's bad. And then find the little hole in the dinghy. Hopefully that's a fairly quick fix. And then do some diving. There's an individual that we met from PB that's in front of us, and he's been on the island for a day, day and a half now, and said the diving's fantastic, it's well worth the trip. This early in the morning, no coffee, it better be some pretty spectacular night. And all of a sudden, I knew the boat was going fast, and we had everything reefed down, so it should have been controlled. And all of a sudden, we go off of a wave, and I start counting. 1001, 1000, boom, 2. And then we go down another one, and boom, hit the anchor in, and it makes all kinds of noise because the anchor and the anchor locker are up there. And I come out, and I look at Deb, and I was like, how fast are we going? Oh, sometimes 5.5, sometimes 6. It's like, we gotta slow this dog down. Because
And we did not win the Volvo race.
we did not win the Volvo race.
But we were close.
And we didn't run into Socorro Island last night either, which is a plus. So.
After 5 days of water and waves, San Benedicto, a dormant volcano that last reportedly erupted in 1953, arose in front of us. Mostly barren, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, part of the Mexican National Parks and Biosphere Reserve. Its ash-covered volcanic cone stands out in the vast sea of blue. It was quite a sight to see, and very welcoming to be sure. We would meet our friends on Paradigm 2.0, Nick and Phil, at the southeast anchorage. This would give us an opportunity to evaluate our autopilot failure and, as we were hoping, to do some diving. John would need some alone time and promptly set me off to snorkel with accomplished world sailor Nick Authier and his talented photojournalist friend Philip Olivier Quentin.
So there's this little piece of plastic, and it's a bushing.
Mm-hmm.
There's part of it. And there's part of it. This thing actually looks. Alright, stay tuned. We got potential. So, this is funny. It's a $1,500 drive unit, and I'm assuming this sensor, it probably costs them $2 to make in Japan. And this little plastic ring right here, they probably get for a penny or 2 cents. And that just failed the entire unit. Plus, it failed our entire trip. That little dude right there.
Alright, so what's
So,
going on?
this is our autopilot drive unit. It is about 2-3 years old, maybe a little bit more, but obviously it's got a fair bit of use in the last year. So in the last couple days, as we've been sailing along and obviously using the autopilot to steer the boat, I've had the sails trimmed to where you needed like minimum autopilot effort. And I noticed that at certain points of steer in the wheel, you would get the wheel and it would just do a big jerking motion, and then over here it'd be a big jerking motion. And I thought, well, what the heck? I thought it was like mechanical, like is the rudder stuck on something, is the wheel, the cables, the quadrant, all this stuff's going through my mind trying to figure out, okay, to me it sounds like, or it feels like the autopilot's in conflict with the mechanics of the boat. So I crawled underneath where the autopilot drive lives, and I'm watching this thing, and when it hits one of those spots, it's just violent. It's just like, and I thought, it's either got to be a gear or a pinion or something, and you can kind of see, so this is actually the pinion drive. So these are all threads all along there, so it rides back and forth, and it's pristine. There's like no damage, no marks, no wear, no nothing. So that's good. And then, long story short, there's a whole bunch of gears on either side of that actually turn and drive it linearly back and forth. So I took it apart, checked all the gears, all the drives, everything, and this thing is built very robust, very strong, very solid. Having a machine background, they did a fantastic job in the design and the build of this. It's really, really good. So I couldn't really find anything. So put it back, ran it back and forth. It seemed really loose, and I thought, let's put it back in. And I remembered another time that I remounted it or changed something that I had to recalibrate it. So I went to recalibrate it, and I kept getting this error message. feedback sensor not found. I'm like, why wouldn't it be found? So integrated in this unit, it doesn't have a separate one, is this feedback sensor right here. And this feedback sensor actually runs off of one of the drive gears here. So as the actuator is moving back and forth, this is sending information to this sensor. So I looked at the gland nut that was on here and it was really tight, and I thought, okay, do I have, what did I do when I put it back in? Did I not get a wire connection right? Did I not get something put back together correctly? So messing with it back and forth, ended up sleeping on it last night, decided to cut this wire short because this gland nut seemed to pinch the wires pretty tight, and I thought maybe I ought to shorten the wire. So I redid them onto the sensor, put it back together, went to adjust it this morning, it's not working. So in sleuthing, I pull this out and you can actually turn the sensor sometimes. It moves freely, but in the same position, every time it gets to it, there's a catch. And sometimes that catch actually locks the sensor completely up. So if this unit's actually trying to work and go through those drive gears, and you're getting this erroneous or this lag in the feedback sensor, it's going to cause the actuator itself to vibrate or to lose track of where it's at, and it's going to try to readjust. But on occasion, this sensor, just turning it with your fingers, locks up completely. So this little guy, who's made in Japan and probably costs $20, just eliminated 1.5 people off this boat as far as crew, because the autopilot is probably by far what I've learned one of the most efficient crew members on this boat. It steers the boat much better than I do most of the time. It can't anticipate waves and rolls and things like that like a human can. But when you've got 80% of the conditions that we've been sailing under, this thing drives the boat, and then Deb and I are off doing something else and not even paying attention to what's going on. So without this, we have an option to use the monitor wind vane that's on the back. It's a mechanical autopilot. What we're going to do right now is debate if we've got 2,200 miles of sailing, do we want to completely put our faith and trust in that? And I would say yes, that's doable. The bottom line is this needs to get fixed, and what I need from the States is this stupid little sensor. So it needs to get to me somehow, some way, and right now we're 200 miles off the coast of Cabo in the middle of nowhere. If we keep going, I'm going to be 3,000 miles out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and I don't know how many miles from Tahiti, but somehow this sensor needs to find its way to my hands. So I'm going to be communicating back to the States with a couple of my friends to see if they can contact the manufacturer of this and get a sensor and see if we can come up by Thursday, was ideally the day that we want to leave. How do we get this? And then Deb and I need to talk about what are we going to do. I hate to even think it because we're late in the season, but if we delay and go to Cabo, we probably missed our window to go to French Polynesia unless we watch the weather faithfully and we bust a move to get through the northern hemisphere and out of the possibility of hurricanes. Because I'm not worried once we're down south, but we've got like 1,500 miles that we need to chew up and get out of the northern hemisphere and get out of the hurricane belt. We've had great weather so far. I've got friends on shore watching NOAA for hurricanes and things come up, and there's just nothing there. And I don't expect anything for the next couple weeks either, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to get this stupid thing. So a little bit disheartened. But that's it from a Sunday on Bella Nave at the Socorro Islands, and the wind's actually dying down a little bit. We were talking about diving, but it was blowing like 25 knots a while ago. Now it's down to 11. So we may actually rethink this and go play and have fun, because there's nothing that I can do here. I'm done. I've diagnosed it. I need a part. There's no way I can take this apart to fix it. Not to say that I'm not going to try, because I'm likely going to try. And then if I'm confident that it'll stay, then we'll go. But this is a potted sensor. It's made in Japan. It's pretty high-tech piece. It's simple in design, and just the fact that it's so restricted on the inside, there's no way it could have got salt water or anything else. So there's something completely jacked, and I don't manufacture these, so I don't know what's in there. And I don't know that even if I could get it apart, which I'm not thinking I can, because like I said, it's potted. I don't know. So we're going to start opening it up and see, but right now we're down on autopilot. It won't work without it. So, cheers. It took us 11 days.
Go from
Cabo to an area out of the hurricane zone.
11 days.
So there's pluses and minuses. There's the 11 days to get there, and 11 days to compete with hurricanes. Because if we don't, plan B, if we're gonna stay in the Sea of Cortez, we're gonna melt this summer.
Well, we'd have
The
to
other thing
have
we
the
can
boat
do is lay
somewhere.
the boat up. We don't have to have the boat anywhere. People leave the boat because they leave for the summer. And if we left for the summer, where would we go? Would we go back and get jobs? That's like plan Z on my list, but it's potential.
As the wind and the swell changed direction, we moved our location to the southernmost anchorage. Everyone knows about the boiler, and we would be closer to it. So would all the large dive operations. Our view of San Benedicto beauty grew even more exponentially as the swells decreased equally. As certified divers, this would be a must-do on any advanced divers list. Liveaboards do come here, and at any other time, we would do it too. Little did we know how exciting our dives would become, how every view from our cockpit was amazing, how comforting the sound of the waves breaking in the sheer beach would be. What are we going to do tomorrow?
Dive the boiler.
You
2
guys are
3
gonna
miles
dive.
this way.
We're gonna dive the boiler, and
We, meaning John, were wakened at midnight by the sound of the generator and Hollywood-style lights. We had this large power yacht dinghy up against our bow as their lights flooded our deck, illuminating the water below and all the sharks within it. Unsure if our chain had caught on a rock, we did not want any boating mishap to happen this far out. John dove in the water as the sharks swam around, feeding on smaller fish that were brought in by the underlights of the boat. They were curious about him, but they chose to stick with their food at hand. John spoke with the owner, who pulled up their dinghy even tighter, just like John to sneak in another dive. Meanwhile, I was wondering how I would write up an incident report, thankful for our suitcase-sized medical kit on board.
good.
It is good. It is good. And I mean, we've seen some mantas there, sharks.
That should be totally out of the swell too, shouldn't it?
I think so too. Like that's why I'm thinking about it now. With those calm winds and everything, like we could, of course, score something good there. And I know we can anchor there now. But it's not anywhere as epic as.
Yeah, I think that's all right. We don't always. It doesn't always have to be a 10, right?
Yeah.
We loved having Nick and Phil on board for video viewing nights and would miss seeing them go tomorrow. Soon we'll be on our way.
So necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? Or at least necessity is, hey John, figure out how this monitor works and get it going. So when we bought the boat, we had this monitor wind vane on the back of the boat. This is about a $6,000 unit. So a lot of stainless. I've obviously gone through it, redone bushings, bearings, everything else, so it was good to go. Redid lines, used to go down and underneath and up the wheel. Now I've got it routed off to the side through pulleys so I can see it. We've never really had much of an opportunity to use it, but now that the electric autopilot system is kaput or in hiatus for the next couple days, we balanced the sails and hooked it up, and everything is working accordingly. So what's really nice about this is the wind is shifting somewhat as we go up to Cabo. So the monitor accounts for that. So I'm trying to point as tight to the wind as I can so that we can get to Cabo, and right now we're headed a little bit towards Mazatlan on occasion. But it'll turn us into the wind as the wind shifts, and this is just a huge relief that Deb and I don't have to be out here hand steering and trying to follow the wind and trying to follow the compass. So the autopilots, bar none, are the best crew member on the boat, bar none.
So the top three things in the Socorros for me would be the mantas. That was, we had probably one of the most epic dives ever. I don't like night dives, and that seems to be when people normally see mantas feeding. We had mantas during the day, and it was just absolutely epic to see these amazing creatures. The topography, the geography around here is exquisite. Hanging out with our friends Nick and Phil from Paradigm 2 was really entertaining and a lot of fun, and I think that enhanced our experience.
Good morning, Walmart shoppers. I lost track of what day it is, so apparently we are living a pretty nice lifestyle. I believe it's Friday morning, and we've been here since Sunday, so we've actually spent a pretty good portion of time here. Socorros are really nice, really nice. This is one of the coolest rocks that I think you could ever find out in the middle of nowhere. We're about 220 miles straight south of Cabo San Lucas, and the dive boats do come out here, and for good reason. One of the premier dive sites is actually on the other side of the island from where we're at right now. It's on the west side, and it's called the Boiler, and it sits about a half mile offshore. and it's a huge rock. It's not even a pinnacle, but you would call it a pinnacle. It comes from about 300 feet off of a flat area up to about 15 feet on the surface. And when we dropped into it the other day, there were 4 manta rays in crystal clear blue champagne water, and that was pretty nice. I mean, that's a lot of the dream and a lot of the motivation for this trip, and the equipment and all the time and the effort is to actually find spots and places like that. So that was super rewarding. We heard on the radio, and we're not sure if it's that same location or a different one, but there's a couple dive boats that operate in this area, and they may have found whale sharks. But like I said, I don't know if it was this one or if it's another dive site that's in a different section offshore. That's definitely the one of the top things on my list. It is rolly, it is windy, and it's dirty. So if you looked at the boat right now, since this is a big volcanic rock and the wind blows, you get all that fine grit and sand that's millions of years old, and it's on everything. So when we brought the boat in the other day, because of the beat that we had to get here, everything had this light, salty, wet mist on it. And then the first night we spent there, we got dirt and dust blowing off the hill. So now the boat's a little bit of a mud pie, but it's worth it, well worth it. But just so people know. So off to Cabo we go.
The time we had at Socorro's was way too short, but I'm thankful for the time that we did have and the time we were able to spend with Nick and Phil. Please follow them at Paradigm 2.0 and us at SV Bella Nave.